Hello again, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com, and what we have before us is another submarine overview. This is a German Class 209, and I am going to show you everything about it. What we have here is a representation of the German 209 class diesel-electric submarine, 47 inches long, 1/48 scale model. This was originally a kit put out by a gentleman by the name of Yannis out of Greece, and it is a spectacular fiberglass kit. Now, a little bit of background on this specific boat. It was originally built by a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Hill up in Canada, and he's outfitted it with one of his custom scratch-built watertight cylinders, which I will show you here in a moment. He ended up selling it to me. I ended up selling it to a good friend up in Dallas by the name of Steve O'Connell. Steve took the boat, put his own spin on it, upgraded the cylinder a little bit, cleaned it up, and ultimately, at the end of the day, sold it back to me once again. It is now being refurbished, and I'm happy to say it will soon be on its way to the new owner. As I mentioned before, the boat is 1/48 scale, 47 inches in overall length. Now, the German 209 class was actually very, very prolific. It was manufactured between 1971 and as late as 2021 in various iterations, like I said, for export by the German Navy. Diesel-electric submarine. A lot of people, a lot of countries invested in these submarines because they wanted to update their submarines from the previous World War II iterations that they were currently operating. Some neat things about this boat. If we take a look at it, you got this very, very high prominent sail. And from what I understand, the captain could actually see the entire boat via the periscope when he was conning it. Standard cruciform setup in the back here for the control surfaces, and actually fairly sizable rudders, which means this thing is actually pretty decently maneuverable. Surprisingly so, both in pitch and in yaw. Has a really nice brass propeller that you can see there. Hold downs are really quite easy on this. There's just a sliding toggle latch. Front and back. Up in the top here, you can see a bunch of periscopes all rigged up here, and this one looks a little different because this is actually the 2.4 gigahertz antenna that sticks all the way up there. In the front here, you can see the forward catch disguised as this little sensor assembly, and that's what locks the front of the hull in. And then just barely peeking out, you can see just a little bit of a dive plane. Now, one of the unique things about the 209 does not have conventional dive planes. When you see them here in these retracted positions, this is actually how they would be while underway if there were no inputs from the bow planes being commanded. What ends up happening in order to dive the boat, this port side dive plane swings out, scoops the water, but nothing happens on the other side, so it's actually off center. To do the opposite, to surface the boat, the other dive plane, which is oriented in the opposite direction, would extend. So just like that Argonaut that I had built a little while ago, that French Argonaut, it has these retracting and extending dive planes. The benefit, of course, is there's no drag while fully underway, and unless you are commanding surfacing or diving via those front dive planes. Drawback, though, obviously, is you are not going to have as much authority for depth control as you would if you had two dive planes out in the flow. So you only have half as much as you would otherwise. Taking a look here, this is the radio that controls everything. It's a RadioLink AT9S Pro. You guys have seen this in my other videos. And Steve O'Connell rigged this boat up for use with that radio. Now that we've taken a look at the outside, let's take a minute, crack into it, and show you the guts. Hull access is super simple. It literally takes a second. This latch goes forward, this one goes forward, you lift up, and you're in. You can see two connections in the bottom here. There's the antenna for the 2.4 gigahertz system. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. So now that antenna is out, and then there's the air hose connection for the low pressure blower. Now that we've got that off, we can see the cylinder in place. Let's take a closer look at it. So starting from the back, you can see the drive shaft for the propeller is a large brass extension in here, a universal dog bone that goes into the motor. Some high-strength magnetic connectors for the linkages for the dive planes and for the rudders. Looking on the inside here, you can see this is actually a really nicely laid out boat. Steve did a really good job of cleaning things up and making it look really good. We'll pull these Velcro straps off so they're not quite in the way. We got our electronic speed controller for the main brushed drive motor. I believe this is the BEC for the receiver, and that is the RadioLink receiver right there. Two servos, one for rudders, one for dive planes. And then right here you can see the linear servo. This is not a cheap servo. This is a linear servo, basically a high precision linear actuator by a company called Actuonics. And if I'm not mistaken, these are about $60 or $80 a piece, but beautiful little units and perfect in this specific application that calls for a linear linkage to the ballast. And then looking at the ballast, you can see how that works. When that linkage retracts, this little plastic ramp pushes up on the vent, and all of the air is evacuated from the ballast system. When you push it forward about 2/3 of the way, before it hits that valve, the low pressure pump, air pump, kicks on. And if it goes all the way, it blows the emergency gas ballast system, which is, I should still have some gas in there if I'm not mistaken. I can't push it with my finger, but so that's the ballast system. And then up front here, we got the air pump for the low pressure ballast, and then our electronic on-off switch, a forward servo. And I apologize, there's a little condensation in here. There's no water in the cylinder. This is just condensation from the air that was inside there. And then the other neat thing about this that I actually kind of like, there is an actual physical waterproof switch in here. So that remote switch draws a tiny bit of current. And if you leave the battery packs plugged in, it'll slowly drain them over the course of a few days or a week. But if you hit this disconnect, there's a physical disconnect between the battery and the switch, and there's no current draw. Here is the forward linkage for the servos, for the dive plane, sorry, and you can see those linkages in place right there. I'll power everything up here in a moment, and I'll show you how those work. And then buried underneath in the bottom here are the nickel metal hydride battery packs. There's two 6-volt nickel metal hydride battery packs, and they are run in parallel, or sorry, in series to give 12 volts to the boat. Let's just power everything on here right now, and radio's powered on. It's the Type 209. I'm going to turn the main power switch on. So the remote switch is now actively listening for the command to turn on. And we'll just go ahead and hit the switch and turn the boat on. And there we go. Functions. we got our, well, actually it's sitting on the table here, so you can't really move the rudder. Let me see if I can do that. Hold on a second. It's kind of important. We want to make sure that you and the new owner knows that it works. There's our rudder, left and right. And you can see those stern planes responding to the pitch of the boat. That automatic pitch controller is working there. And then, of course, you got the override for the stern planes right here. Then we got our main drive system. That is nice and smooth. And I will say that this boat is really fast. It is a little bit of a speed demon. I love it. Works really, really good. Let's take a look at those forward dive planes. So just to review the controls here, we've got our aft dive planes and our rudder on this stick. Throttle is on this stick. And then the ballast system is actually on a slider on the back right here. And the reason that we did that is because this is actually a 4-position ballast system. It's in the middle right now. If we push the slider down, you see that little vent open up. Now if we move it about 2/3 of the way up, you'll hear the air pump kick in. And this is the intake. Sucking air from the surface. And if you're below periscope depth, if you go a little bit further, it'll depress that valve, and that's your gas backup, which is empty right now, so there's no gas to blow. But yeah, that's basically it. Now on the other side, on the slider, is the forward dive plane. So if we wanted to submerge, you can see that port side plane extend, but the starboard didn't move. And if we go the other way, you can see the starboard side move and nothing going on with the port side. So this was a bit of engineering. When I got it, the linkage was, let's just say, not optimal. And if you take a look at my weekly update video, you'll actually see what I did and how I did and why I did all of that stuff. One other thing that I have in here is this voltage display, and that was put in by Steve, so you can see that the onboard voltage is at 11.5 volts, which is probably a little bit on the low side. I should top this up before we send it on its way. Had it out at the lake on Saturday, running for about an hour, so no doubt the batteries need a little top up. So here's the boat with the cylinder removed, and taking it out is incredibly easy. You basically just pop off your magnetic connections, undo your Velcro straps, undo the front linkage for the dive planes there, and lift the cylinder out. Very, very easy. And then obviously reinstallation is simply the opposite. So when you're preparing for the pond, really there's a few things that you need to do that are just super simple. Linkages in the back and drive shaft, linkage in the front, air hose to the pump, which is drawing air, by the way, from this snorkel right here in the sail, and then running your 2.4 gigahertz antenna right out this. And by the way, this is fully removable for easy transport. So that is the boat in a nutshell. So let's talk just a little bit about what this boat was like to drive. Now, I was a little bit hesitant because I know Steve O'Connell had some challenges with this boat when he had it, and I think a lot of it just kind of revolved around his efforts to try and get those forward dive planes going. But what I found was that this is a surprisingly fun boat to drive, and there's a few reasons for that. First off, as I mentioned before, it's pretty quick. It will get up and go. It'll push a nice wake when it's fully underway. But of course, you can scale it back with just a little bit of restricted use of your throttle, and you get a nice scale-like appearance of the boat during operation. It's pretty quick to submerge and pretty quick to surface again, which is obviously very nice to do. But the thing that makes it the most fun is the responsiveness that it has to those stern control surfaces, those being obviously the rear dive planes and the rudders. It turns really well and responds very, very well to the inputs that you give it through the transmitter to dive, to surface, and to maintain periscope depth. It is, as it sits right now, completely hands-free periscope depth operation, which makes it really, really fun to operate. When I had it out at the lake last Saturday, I did not need to use the forward planes at all. A little bit of use of those stern planes will get you to any depth that you want. Take your hand off, the pitch controller kicks in, and it will stay perfectly level at whatever depth you want. So a surprisingly well responsive boat and surprisingly fun to drive. It is a unique looking submarine, you know, not one that a lot of people typically glom onto as their primary, you know, boat that they are really looking to add to their fleet. But I am glad that this came through the shop and that I had the opportunity to work on it for the new owner. Well, there you go, everyone. Another boat from your friends at the Nautilus Dry Docks. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, do me a favor, like and subscribe. It helps us out here a lot. If you have something to say, comments, questions, suggestions, I would love to hear from you. You can drop a comment below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, but if you want a quick response, email is the best way. Bob at Nautilus Dry Docks is where you will find me. With that, I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.